All right. So today we are going to talk about metaphors. What is a metaphor, Zachary?
A metaphor is when someone is a person turns into something else.
A metaphor is when a person turns into something else.
Like, a metaphor is like something that starts off as one thing and turns into something else.
Okay. What do you think, Jenna? What is a metaphor?
I think a metaphor is saying something, like it's doing an example of something else.
Okay, it's doing an example. What do you think a metaphor is?
It's like an expression for, say, someone could say, today was today was like a rainy day, but which it would really mean today was kind of a bad day, or it could have been like a sad day.
Okay, depending on how you put it. What do you think, Trace? What is a metaphor?
I think in where you say something, but it's not necessarily the truth.
Okay, when you say something and it's not necessarily the truth, what do you think it is?
An easier way to say something, like say it's raining cats and dogs, it's raining hard.
Okay, so what is figurative language? What is figurative language?
Figurative language is like a different type of way of speaking.
Okay, it's a different type of way of speaking. Does Esperanza have a lot of figurative language in it?
Yes.
Okay, so a metaphor is when you look at two different things and you compare them, but you don't use like or as. Okay? Sometimes our author puts metaphors in our writing so that it's not so boring. If you were just reading something on paper and it just Sally went to the market, the dog ran over to the pool. That's kind of boring, isn't it? It's not exciting to you, is it? But if you said something like, we tiptoed as lightly as feathers through the dark woods, what would that mean? What would that mean?
You tiptoed very quietly.
You tiptoed very quietly, good. So, but the author, you see the words the author used? That's figurative language. He's using a metaphor because he wants to show with some kind of picture. When you picture that in your head, what do you see? What do you see?
Walking like feathers, like if their feet were actually feathers.
Okay, so you picture somebody with like feet like feathers. Nobody hears them coming, huh? Okay. How about this one right here? My grandpa's bark is worse than his bite. What do you think that one means?
I think that means that when he gets angry, he gets very loud.
When he gets angry, he gets very loud. Do you think the bark is his voice?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. What do you think?
I think it means when he gets mad, he screams, and they say he bites like he whoops him or something like that.
It
Ah.
doesn't say bite, it says it's worse than his bite.
His bark is worse than his bite. So do you think he's really, really barking at somebody?
No, it's like it's using not in other words using some other words to make him to figure language.
Okay, very good. How about my father, when angry, became a demon? What does that mean?
When he gets angry, he's really mean.
He's really mean? Do you think he's really a demon?
No.
No. So if you put that picture in your head of the father being a demon, it would definitely look different, wouldn't it? All right. So what I want to watch is I want to show you a quick little video of metaphors. So you might have to, Zachary, you might have to come right here so that you can see it. Can you see that? they're comparing, all right, go ahead and go back to your seat. All right, so when you look at that video, it's comparing, Elvis Presley compares a person to a hound dog. Is that person really a hound dog?
No.
What do you think it means?
It means like the person.
He said you ain't nothing but a hound dog. What do you think he means by that?
Somebody like they're like mean or something like they talk about. He's calling like somebody that's mean or something.
Okay, what do you think it means?
A hound dog is actually really good at hearing for hunting. So he could be saying somebody is really good at hearing things.
He could be. What is that? Does a hound dog make any kind of loud noises?
Yeah.
What do they do?
They bark.
They bark very loud.
And what is their name? Their name is a hound. So what do hound dogs do?
They hunt. They hunt people.
And they howl to get their attention. So he's saying you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Do you think he's comparing that person to being maybe loud or? All right. So what I'm gonna do today? Yes.
The one it says, my father, when angry, becomes a demon, or my grandpa's bark is worse than his bite.
Mm-hmm. How about the one that compared the highway? Is life actually a highway?
No.
No. What do you think that means?
It means like life goes a long way.
Life does go a long way, and we go in many, many different directions. All right, so what we're going to do today is in front of you, you have what we call a flip book. And in your flip book, we're going to look at metaphors that are in Esperanza. So the first one I want you to look at, I want you to go to page 14 in your Esperanza book. So go to page 14. Yes, you should have a pencil to write with. Go get a pencil quickly. All right, so in 14, I want to read this to you. It says, Abuela nodded and said thoughtfully, no hay rosazina espinassas. There is no rose without thorns. There is no rose without thorns. So in your box, it says, the text says, there is no rose without thorns. It's on page 14, right here. So if you need to use the words in the book, it's right here. It's right up here. There is no rose without thorns. Page 14. And you can write the page number right down here in the bottom of your graphic organizer, right here where we found it, right underneath your sheet on there. There is no rose without thorns.
Can I write what it means?
Now, when you flip that up on the inside, it says, what does this mean? I want you to write what you think that means. Based on our story and what we know so far in this story, what do you think life without, no rose without thorns, what do you think that means in this story? What do you think the author is trying to tell us in the figurative language? It's a metaphor. He's comparing life to the thorns on a rose. What do you think it means? Does it need to cut up a little bit more? What do you think it means? Do you need yours cut a little bit more, Trace?
Life will have sharp tongues.
Okay, write it down, and we'll discuss it in just a minute. Give everybody a chance to write it down. Just think about what we've learned so far in this book and what you think that means. It's comparing life to the thorns on a rose. Got it? What'd you write?
Life is hard and deadly.
Life is hard and deadly. What'd you write?
I wrote, everyone's life has challenges.
Everyone's life has challenges. What'd you write?
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. What'd you write?
Everyone is strong.
Everyone is strong. What'd you write?
Will have sharp tongues.
What'd you say?
Sharp tongues.
life has sharp turns. All right, what do you think the thorns on the roses do? What do they do for them?
The roses of the thorn, they protect the rose bush.
They protect the rose bush, right? I mean, there's a reason why they're on there, so people can't, bugs or little things trying to get to that rose doesn't get to it because that thorn is going to stick them. And so think about how that relates to Esperanza's life. What has happened to her life that is like that rose and those thorns?
First, her papa died, and then her mom's in the hospital. She's trying to protect her mom from dying and stuff.
Are you saying, or do you think those are the thorns that are sticking her? Her papa dying and her mom being sick in the hospital?
Yes, and they're trying to keep her from out of the hospital from sick germs and stuff.
Yeah, they are trying to keep her away from her mom so she didn't get germs. Jenna, what do you think?
I think, like, Esperanza, the thorns protecting her mom while she's in the hospital.
Okay, what do you think?
I do know that when they created that statue in Esperanza's backyard, it had Papa's roses, and that's what's keeping the family from stay strong about Papa's death.
Okay, so it's helping them kind of keep them connected. What do you think, Trace?
I think what Robbie is saying because she's pretty much saying that if even though somebody dies, they'll always be in the heart.
Okay, what do you think, Sam?
I agree with them too.
Okay, all right, so let's look at the next one. It's on page 18, so everybody go to page 18. Kind of scan over it with your eyes. And see if you can tell me another one that's in there. What do you see on page 18?
Me read on my screen.
Okay, and read the rest of it. Read past that.
Me read my screen, but nothing more. There was no teasing or laughing or talking about every little thing.
All right, keep on going down.
Esperanza pretended not to care, though she secretly wished she had never told Miguel about the river. Distracted Mama faced at the window.
Okay, stop there. Go back up to the top of the page, and I want you to read me the first sentence.
But as she was a young woman, she understood that Miguel was the housekeeper's son, and she was the rancher's daughter. And
Finish reading it.
between them ran a deep river.
All right, so stop there. What do you think the metaphor is in this? What do you think the metaphor is?
They're two very different people.
Okay, but what does the text say? On the front, you write, what does the text say? What's the text say in here? What did it say?
That deep river ran between them.
Okay, so write that. Just remember, the front of your foldable is what the text says itself. And then underneath, I want you to write, what does that mean? What does that figurative language, that metaphor mean to us? When you say this means that they were far apart, what does that mean? What do you mean far apart? Like they were far apart on two different sides of the island or two different sides of pieces of land? What does it mean when you say there was a deep river between them? What does that mean? What does that actually mean? Does it mean there really was a deep river between, like a deep river going between me and you?
No,
Can you show me evidence that they're related in the book? How are Miguel and Esperanza related?
Oh, it's her servant.
Okay, so does that mean they're related?
No.
They're just really, really good friends.
They're really, really good friends. So what does it mean when she says that there's this deep river that runs between them? What do you think that means? What is she trying to say?
Her and Alfonso were like being friends.
Can I help them?
Jenna, what did you write?
I wrote that it means the far part between Esperanza being a servant and being rich and him being a servant.
Okay, what did you write, Robbie?
I said that Miguel is a whole different person.
And what do you mean by he's a whole different person? What does that mean?
Like, I'm saying he's a different person because I'm not trying to be rude,
Mm-hmm.
but I know Miguel is kind of poor, like, but back when he was their servant, they were really good friends, which they still are now, but he was a servant and Esperanza was just a rich person.
Okay.
And then since he was a servant, it was kind of weird for a rich person to.
All right, so let's go back to page 17 where it says, several years ago when Esperanza was still a young girl, Mama and Papa had been discussing boys from good families for whom Esperanza should meet someday. She couldn't imagine being matched with someone she had never met, so she announced, I'm going to marry Miguel. Mama had laughed at her and said, you will feel differently as you get older. No, I won't, Esperanza had said stubbornly. But now that she was a young woman, she understood that Miguel was the housekeeper's son and she was the ranch owner's daughter, and between them ran a deep river. Esperanza stood on one side and Miguel stood on the other, and the river could never be crossed. Never be crossed. Why do you think that river could never be crossed? Trace, what do you think? What did you write on your note catcher?
They're not alike, but they're still friends.
How are they not alike?
Because one's rich and then the other's Miguel's a servant and Esperanza's rich.
Okay, what did you write, Sam?
They have two very different lives.
They do. They have two very different lives, and we call that a social class. When you have different classes, you might have heard somebody say, oh, they're in first class or second class or third class. Like when you get on an airplane and you fly, you have first class, and that's where you get all the champagne and the fancy stuff, and you get nice meals, and you have bigger seats and more room. Then you go to second class, which is, sort of the middle of the plane, and your seats are kind of cramped together. You don't have that much leg room in between. You might get some peanuts and some pretzels or something in the soda, but you don't get anything extra. It's just very bare minimum. And then third class, you might even have even smaller seats, or you might be at the back of the plane. So you have different classes on the plane, just like we do in society. People, who are really, really rich, they call them the first class people. They call them, the rich people. And we normally hang out with those kind of people.
I would.
Really, really rich?
No, not really, really rich, but
He has more money than you. Okay, so he might be considered like the next class up. I mean, he would, but Esperanza and Miguel are like way out here. Here's Esperanza way up here, and here's Miguel way down here. And they're saying they can't be brought together. Okay, let's look at one more example on page 160. Mm-hmm.
that river actually has been crossed because Esperanza has came down.
Mm-hmm. Now we can see that things are changing. All right, so let's go to page 160, and this one's a big one. It said, after Mama fell asleep, we're on page 160, Esperanza picked up the needlework and began where Abuelita had left off. 10 stitches up to the top of the mountain, add 1 stitch, 9 stitches down to the bottom of the valley, skip 1. Her fingers were more nimble now and her stitches were more even. The mountains and valleys in the blanket were easy. But as soon as she reached a mountain, she was headed back down into a valley again. All right? So think about the stitches. So what does the text say? The text said that the stitches in the blanket were mountains and valleys, right? What do you think that means? Why do you think they keep talking about this blanket and the stitching and how it's mountains and valleys? What do you think that means
Because
figuratively to Esperanza's
Because
story?
when you
Write it
show-
down here and give them a chance to write theirs down, okay? So the stitches in the blanket are valleys or mountains and valleys. And what do you think that means? Think about our story we've read so far. Think about what's been going on. What do you think the author was trying to get us to understand with using that metaphor? Comparing the stitches to mountains and valleys.
Right
Right,
now,
right.
my mom's in the valley. She's working her way up to the mountain.
Okay, well, write down what you think it means according to our story. And then we'll talk about it. I'll give everybody a minute. What do you think that means when she's talking about the stitches, Zakari? She's stitching this blanket, she's crocheting it, and she says that some of the stitches are mountains. You know, think about a mountain. Draw a mountain down here on the bottom of your folder. What do you think a mountain would look like? You ever seen a mountain? No? Never seen a mountain? Okay, you've never seen a mountain? Let me see if I can find one for you. Oh yeah, look at the front of your book. See the mountain there? So draw a mountain right there so you can see it. And then down inside would be your valley.
You see how it goes down, like right here, and then it has like a shorter mountain.
Okay, so up here would be your mountain. Down here would be your valley. So what do you think that means to Esperanza's story? Yes, see how hers is? That's her valley right there. Here's the top of the mountain and here's the valley. What do you think that means to Esperanza's story? What do you think that statement that the stitches are mountains and valleys? Remember, Abuela goes into a burning house to get that blanket because she wants to have that blanket for some reason. She stitches that blanket when she is, when she's worried about Papa. She's stitching that blanket still. What do you think the stitches, when it references the mountains and the valley, what do you think that means?
I have to guess.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it in just a minute. You don't know? Well, what's happened to, it's okay. What's happened to Esperanza in this story? What's happened to Esperanza in the story? Okay, so when she was rich, was she on top of that mountain? When she was rich, was she on top of the mountain? Okay, and what's happened to her since then? Where is she at now? Okay, and why is she in the valley? Give me an example of how she's in the valley.
So she started when she was in Mexico. So Papa wasn't alive and she had most of the money.
Okay, but what's happened to her now? When she was in Mexico, she lived in a fancy house with lots of nice dresses and servants. What's happened to her now?
She had to leave Mexico and
No, she went to California. What has happened to her now? Tell me about her life right now. How's things changed for her?
her mom is
How has changed things for her? What kind of things have happened to her since she went to California?
people, Mario is picking on her.
Okay, all right.
Tia Lewis has burnt down their house. Papa has died and Logan has got sick.
Okay, so how do you think Esperanza feels?
Feels sad.
She feels sad. Is she at the bottom of that? Yeah, she's at the bottom of that. So she's not feeling very happy, is she? But when she was at her mansion, was she high up? Yeah, she was at the top of the mountain, right? Not in the valley, she was at the top of the mountain. Okay, do you not understand stuff? Yes, so write down here what you think it means when it says the stitches are the mountains and the valleys. What do you think it means now? So he drew a picture so he could kind of help himself. And if you want to draw a picture at the bottom of your foldable, you can do that to see exactly what it would look like in your head. So you have that visual. Now, why is it important for us to understand figurative language?
So we know how people say something, and when you get older, I know older people use a lot of expressions sometimes. So as we're talking to our grandfather or something like that, and they say something like, when I was a youngster, my dad's bark is worse than his bite, and we need to know what you probably need to know what he means by that.
Mm-hmm. All right. How are you going to use this information that we just learned today about these metaphors in Esperanza? How's that going to help you to understand Esperanza as a story? How's that going to, Sam, how's that going to help you to understand Esperanza?
By some of the metaphors that are in there.
Is-
And what it means.
So that's going to, okay. What do you think, Trace? How's that going to help you?
It'll help you know like what they're talking about, like they said have a metaphor in there, you'll know that it's not really like,
What does figurative language do for us? What does it give us in our head?
It gives
Jenna?
it gives us an image of what's happening.
It gives us an image of what's happening. Does, in our books, do we have pictures all the time? No. Sometimes the words in the book is what helps us get that image in our head of what's happening. Sometimes we have to see and feel the characters in order to understand what's going on, right? Okay, very good, guys.